You're listening to the VMJPod's Employee Brand Series. I'm Dave Macciocca, and joining me for this special Sydney edition is Brie Mason. Together we're unpacking what's really working in employee brand today, from fresh ideas to actions driving real change inside leading organisations.
Welcome to the VMJPod, where we're unpacking employer brand. I'm Dave Macciocca.
And I'm Brie Mason.
And with us we have Daniel Connolly. Welcome.
Hi, well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Well, we've got an awesome topic that we're going to be unpacking today around building business cases for employer brand. But before we delve into it, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, sure.
Let's build the credibility.
Oh, gosh, sure.
Where do we start?
Here's my LinkedIn. Just kidding. Look, my background, bit of a broad sort of mixed bag, or sort of jack of all trades to some extent, I suppose, across employer brand, employee experience, and background in learning and organisational development, culture and performance practices, all of that. So, but particularly the last sort of however long, very much in the employer brand and EX space, and sort of bringing the two together.
So employer brand occasionally can be reactive. It's easy to say no in employer brand, but you really want to start with the business case, don't you, if you are being engaged?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the journey when someone does come to you and asks for your help or your expertise in attracting talent within an organisation.
Well, I actually find it hard to say no. That's a bit of a thing for me. But, you can't do everything, right?
Yeah.
And the business is like, oh, we've got this problem and this. So, you have to be able to be selective and figure out what the priorities are. So look, employer brand, is something I think for anyone in the space and in TA, you work so closely with talent acquisition. That is, either you're part of that team with your role, or you're another team that works alongside them and really closely. They are your sort of, your trusted partners that sort of interface into the business very much, that you lean on, as well as your P&C business partners, etc. But it's really starting, and often that's where it's sort of the need, sort of, there's a whisper or something going on in the business, and it will probably come to you from the talent acquisition team or the TA business partner for a particular part of the business. That's when it's like, okay, things get exciting, and it's like, okay, what have we got? Let's find out. That's where you sort of start the conversation. So it starts often with them, not more scenarios. Sometimes, I've sometimes had the business come directly to me, as depending on how things work in the organisation that you're in. But let's say, it starts, the TA business partner has come to you. They're like, we've got this sort of thing going on. We haven't really got a talent pool here. The business is crying out for help, blah, blah, blah. And say, okay, let's sit down, let's have a conversation. Let's find out what's going on, what's, what you can get from the TA business partner. And then sort of go from there.
Sounds like you're diagnosing the problem, because it could be a retention issue. It could be that you're looking to, like the CEO's decided, or a business unit has just been discovered that there's a requirement or a need, and you're qualifying the recruiter or the partner.
And that's,
have you found that in a similar situation, Brie?
Absolutely. And I think it's then the requirement for you to then spend time with the TA business partner to understand the situation, but then also spending time with the business and your target audience, right? To be able to really get to the root cause, or kind of get the insights you need to build out an awesome brief. Right?
So you're quickly pushing away from the recruiter. It's like, let me at them.
Well, it's both, right?
It
you
is
need
both.
to be able to test and validate what you're hearing from the recruiter, and use as much sources of information as you can. And to your, actually interesting when you said what I'm thinking or going through there is sort of diagnosing the problem. That's exactly what I'm doing. I think what a lot of people would do, and I do it because my background in OD and capability, partnering with business functions to understand what is the performance issue that you're trying to solve for. You're diagnosing a problem. And it's the same here with anything, really. So you're starting the conversation probably with, the TA business partner, but then you go, okay, that's great. This is a great start. I've got some of the key pieces of information, and what you are telling me what you need as well from a TA point of view. But let's also go now talk to the business and hear it, direct from the horse's mouth, so to speak, in their own words. And there may be, because there's always additional pieces that you glean from that, and little nuggets that, that no one had thought of or that were missed. And so it's I think the more conversations and sources of information you can have, the better. So it's that's and I think in employer brand, we don't want to hide away in our little corner in the ivory tower and HR or marketing wherever we sit. We have to be able to connect and talk with the business and talk with them and understand what's going on in their world, right?
Yes. Yeah. My perception of you, I know I've known you for many years, you're like the insights and data person. I know you understand the importance of getting rich insights and data. But I also know that you've perhaps nailed the art of pulling together a really good brief that then generates kind of a great outcome.
Yeah.
How did you get this good? Tell me give me the backstory here.
Yeah, and for me as well, I love a good brief because it's not that it's an academic exercise. It helps guide your thinking and crystallise the problem. Yep. And I love that, right? And so a really good brief will help you work through that. So my background previously to one of my first employer brand roles, or my first employer brand role, in a prior role, several roles before that in my career, I partnered with the marketing teams at Lion, and they had something like 400 marketers across Australia, New Zealand, and then internationally as well, 150 different brands. And I got to work on a huge organisational project leading and developing their marketing framework for how they build and grow brands. And that taught me everything about marketing, everything I learned from what is a marketing insight to shopper, to customer, to consumer, to the consumer pathway or journey rather, everything, to distinctive brand assets, to how you build a brand strategy. And I got to work with marketing directors and marketing consultants that we brought in, building and developing this framework. And it was amazing. It taught me everything. And that was what I brought with me when I came to the world of employer brand. And it was all of that, those tools and that knowledge that I was like, okay, well, it still fits. Like it's still marketing and employer brand. Some of the aspects are different. It's not the same as going and buying a package off the shelf at the supermarket in terms of that consumer marketing lens. It's different with candidates. Candidates are constantly opting in. Do I want to work with this employer? Do I not? So it's a little bit different, but a lot of the principles are very similar and the same. So I started with that when it came up for me in this first role, and I was doing employer brand, where we needed to do a recruitment marketing campaign. There was a sort of dire need in the business, and we hadn't done one before. And so it was, and we didn't, like most employer brand teams, you have a very small budget or none. Things are run on the smell of an oily rag. So it's sometimes you often, and particularly in larger established organisations, you ask the business to pay for that, or you say what budget and what resources have you got. And that was the case in this situation. We had a little bit that we were able to contribute out of the TA budget, but we had to go to the business and say, look, we had a sense that we're probably going to need more funds for this.
Is that one of the benefits of building out a brief, managing expectation
100%.
As well, trying to squeeze the juice out of what budget actually exists?
100%. Because if you're going to go to the business and ask for money, you better have a good reason, and you better have done your homework and your research, which is your brief, and really established and understood the problem, what they're telling you, understand the risks, the outcomes you're trying to achieve, and what's the likelihood. And, because, a campaign, like we're talking about advertising, right? And nothing's ever assured with advertising. No. So you have to be really good at setting expectations with the business. And, you don't want to make all these promises. We're going to deliver you 100 amazing unicorn candidates that can start tomorrow. No. You have to be very realistic about what you might achieve and what you're aiming for. And that comes from all of the work that you do, the prep, the conversations you have with them, understanding their business and their business problem. So it's...
So what makes a killer brief?
Well, so for me, I think, less is not more. Well, it depends. I think I start with capturing as much as you can, right? In terms of that context and the background. So let's say you've gone and spoken to your TA business partner, you're hearing from them, look, we just find it so hard. We never have candidates when they suddenly have, hiring needs, whatever. Or the candidates we're seeing and getting are not, it's not quite what we're looking for. Well, the business said they're looking for something new. So I start with it's almost like I sort of start writing that into the brief, but then once you then go and have conversations with the business, I think you start building that out further and getting that background and that context to really understand the audience. Who are they looking for? What does that look like? Is it the same talent they've been hiring same time and again, or is it something different? Are they not getting what they're needing? So, but again, that starts with a question or conversation even before that. What is the business problem you're trying to solve for? Are you not hitting targets, and is that because it's the talent mix you've got at the moment is they haven't got some of the skills that you're needing because the market's changed or whatever it is. This particular campaign that we started doing at Lion was a sales campaign, was a field sales campaign. So field sales teams who are reps who are out on the road, going around to, so Lion's a, for those who don't know, brewer, food and beverage, alcohol company. So they work with pubs, bars, clubs, restaurants, as well as off-prem, which is your bottle shops and whatnot. So their teams are, they're national. They're out in the field all
big
day
company.
long.
Big company,
Yeah,
huge
big
logos.
Yeah, very iconic, well-known brands.
Yeah.
And at the time, which was another side story, interesting, where Lion was a house of brands, but no one really knew Lion, but everyone knew the brands. Tours, Florex Gold, blah blah blah. But that was a separate challenge, which we had a lot of fun with. But it's the challenge coming back to this brief was that they were looking for field sales talent, and they wanted more female talent. So Lion had also been on a journey doing their WGEA data and wanting to change and evolving their culture and wanting to hire more diverse talent and more female talent into the organisation, particularly in sales.
Well, it's so good that they were so transparent about wanting to achieve that goal, and they saw this as an opportunity. That really defines the brief, doesn't it, when you get to that point of difference?
100%. And that was part of the context that we captured in the brief. So sometime just prior, I think 6 or 12 months or more, just prior to when we were doing this piece of work, Lion had did this incredible piece of work where they had closed the gender pay gap within the company in like-for-like roles. So they spent some huge amount of money, it was over $1 million, as a one-off adjustment where they found there was a very small sort of gap in the gender pay gap in like-for-like roles. It wasn't as big as they thought it might be. It was small, but they thought, well, we have to solve this. Let's do something about it, and they immediately closed it. And that's a whole other thing. I can talk about that for days, but it was amazing, and that was a huge part of our story and part of our employer brand. And now was the time, okay, we're doing all this work, we're investing in female talent in the organisation, and we've sorted our house inside the house. Now we're ready to actually go after this kind of talent out in the market. And so this field sales campaign was very much focused on female talent attraction. And so all of this was factored into the brief, so the journey we'd been on, what the business and why they were needing this kind of talent, what they thought this kind of talent was going to bring to the organisation in terms of that skills mix, what it would add to the existing teams. And the interesting thing was, the thing that we're very conscious of was that, well, we're a beer company. We are. We're seen as very blokey, macho, we're a beer company, right? And so we thought that's the industry, and that's a perception we're probably going to have to fight against. And
these salespeople, they're going out to pubs.
Correct.
They're going. So that would there's a bit of a stigma there.
Macho, blokey environments.
Maybe the manager's like a 100%. Manager of a pub.
Yeah, and so there was that perception of us, of the company being part of this industry, that we're painted with the same brush, that we are a very male-dominated blokey industry. But we wanted to be able to tell the story that, well, we may not be like what the rest of the industry is. We think we're different because we're doing all this work. We'd closed the gender pay gap. We did all this investment into female talent, female leadership, etc., and incredible work around the culture. But the other insight we started uncovering, and this came through conversations with the TA team and business partners, because we wanted to understand, okay, well, is there anything else in terms of those perceptions about us or the work that might be, a bit of an issue that, we're not thinking of? It's always the question, what are we not thinking of? What is the question we haven't asked yet, right? And so in the conversations we had with the TA team, there was we're hearing this from talent, but actually when we speak to candidates, a lot of the time, sometimes what we're hearing is, yes, they've got some preconceived and often not inaccurate perceptions of the industry. However, there were also perceptions of, well, if I'm a female in a field sales role, out on the road on my own, going into pubs, blokey environments, probably working with I'm going to guess who the publican who's running the pub is a bloke in a singlet who's probably not very happy, and that's not going to be a fun job. Like, do I want to do that as a female sales rep? And that's fair question, fair point, right? And so this is what we uncovered as sort of an additional layer of insight with our conversations with our TA business partners and a bit of other data that we were looking at. So we're like, okay, there's something here. It's not just about the industry, the perception that they have. It's about our customers and what the job is actually like. And we're like, okay, we know that is not entirely accurate. We know the reality is quite different. We have great relationships with our customers, with the publicans, and we know a lot of the customers that we work with, they're not all male.
They don't know wear singlets.
They don't. we again conversations with the business, with the sales team. It's like, well, who are our customers? What are they like? And they're like, no, my God, like they're so diverse. Like, it's actually, that's a stereotype that it's a bloke in a singlet ran the pub. That is not the norm. Actually, we have female publicans. We have husband and wife teams running pubs. We have people who've decided to quit their corporate career and go and open a pub or a bar and doing really diverse customers.
So one of the benefits of having a killer brief is distilling myths.
Yes, 100%.
And then once it's documented, what action do you take as a result? What's the next step?
Yeah, sorry.
Because obviously the brief hasn't been completed. There's going to be actions as part of the brief.
Exactly, yeah. And I haven't obviously covered all the details I'm rabbiting on, but everything else is in the brief, right? We started obviously then having conversations because we knew we were going to be looking to advertise on LinkedIn and potentially other areas. So we started having conversations with our account manager there and saying, what does the audience look like out there? What can we expect? What sort of numbers are we looking at? All of that. Because we had to get a sense of what might be achievable, what sort of budget we might need for that kind of reach or conversion, etc. So what we'd established in the brief was obviously all of these insights in terms of the perceptions about us and the role in the industry, and then we got that clarity as to who are we looking for, what is that audience, and what's the size of that audience out there, what might be achievable.
How did you find out about the size of the audience? Where would people go to look to identify the talent segment?
Yeah, so that's something. So for those who obviously use LinkedIn for campaigns, you can do a little bit of that yourself in terms of setting up a campaign on LinkedIn and sort of going through the motions and setting up who's your target audience, what sort of size would that look like. But you probably need to work with your account manager or someone there to give you a much more sort of detailed level of insight into the size of that audience, what's realistic, what's achievable, what are the benchmarks that you might see with the type of ads that you're looking for. Because in your brief, you also then you have to get to a point defining, what's the objective of this campaign? Is this just brand awareness? Is it perception change? Is it conversion? Are we trying to build a pipeline of candidates that we want to contact? Are we hiring them right away? Or is it just a talent pool for later?
Is LinkedIn the town hall for data like that, or are there other areas where you can get information on talent segments?
Of course, there's other places and spaces you can certainly get that. In our case, that was the platform of preference for what we were needing, for the audience we were looking for. Yeah. I don't know, you've done lots of other...
it really does exactly. There's the industry, whatever your industry you're after, and where the people are at, obviously, in the corporate world. A lot of people are on LinkedIn, right? With their active users, at least they've got a profile, which is actually then gives you a lot of the Australian working population is on there.
Yeah. So. I mean, the power of, without selling LinkedIn at all, the power of what you see or get on LinkedIn is skills, yeah. So, we had other campaigns that I did when I was at Lion at the time as well around we needed to attract hospitality talent who are not often on LinkedIn, unless you're hiring executive chefs or something like that, but they're not really there. They're on Seek, they're on Facebook, Insta and other places where it might be harder to determine the sort of the skills that you're looking for in terms of that targeting. Anyway, so in this case of this campaign, LinkedIn was the platform that we're looking at. So you've done your brief, you've gotten it all tight, you've got all the pieces, you've sort of gotten, you're locking things in. As I said, the brief is a wonderful thing to, I find, to, as I say, distill and crystallise your thinking. And, you know, I mean, today, you know, we didn't have AI back then, but I'm sure you could use AI to sort of whip up a bit of a brief. But I think you still have to go through and do the work yourself as well, right? You have to do the research and talk with your stakeholders in the business. And then I think it's super valuable to go through and, you know, either write it out yourself or rework it so you can get really clear on the thinking and what you're trying to achieve and what are you missing, what are you not thinking about. So you've done that, yeah? I think the next step for me, I think, which is, you know, a really important step, is to go back to the business and chat to them and say, all right, here's what I've heard. Here's all the research and the conversations and the work we've been doing. We've distilled it and captured it. Is this right? Does this sound right to you? So you're verifying.
Sign it off in blood.
100%. It's a bit like, and so you're sort of asking them to sort of, you know, hear what you've present what you've got, and then sort of say it back, and it's kind of reverse brief, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, because you know, you want to make sure you haven't missed anything, you've got it right, you've heard them, and that they feel confident in what you're proposing, because you're asking for money, but you're also asking for time probably from their hiring leaders or employee talent in the business that you might want to interview or film or whatever for the campaign, for your assets. So I think you then start setting expectations as well.
And do you use this as a form of credibility?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because, like I think most of us know in the employer brand space, you know, particularly, and at that time employer brand was new for Lion. They hadn't, you know, had a role like that before. They hadn't built a strategy or done anything with that. So it was new for the business, and often that's the case in a lot of organisations. Or even if you've had employer brand for a while, you know, not every team or part of the business knows about it or knows what it is or understands. So, you know, particularly when you're going to them and saying, hey, we want to do something, we need your help, or we need your time, or we want some money from you, you've got to establish credibility to say, well, you know, employer brand is not just a nice fluffy thing just for the sake of let's put some pretty pictures on our careers site. It's solving a business problem.
Yeah.
That's what employer brand is. And so you have to be able to talk the talk with the business, with your talent acquisition business partner, to understand their business problem and how you're helping them solve that. So, yeah, so the brief, or, you know, it's almost like a business case, you know, is showing them you understand what their problem is. You've got a solution potentially that you're proposing. It's very clear to them what's going to happen, what you're going to do, and what the outcome hopefully should be from that. And, you know, there's no surprises. Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by VMJ, the employee-generated content platform helping organisations tell their story through the voices of their people. Formerly known as VMJ Job, VMJ makes it simple to create once and repurpose everywhere. One employee video becomes blogs, quote cards, and social posts, all automatically edited, branded, and ready to share. Our AI-accelerated platform makes it easy to scale authentic storytelling, showcase your culture, and attract the right people. Ready to see what's possible? Visit VMJ.co to learn more.
And we need to be a lot more commercial, I think.
Yeah, that's it.
Perhaps in the people space, people culture teams, we're not necessarily, we're an enabling function. We're not a commercial function, whereas a lot of our internal client stakeholders are. And if we are actually to be a true marketing function, we need to act like marketers where there is. It's around dollars and cents and what is the ROI of this. And we need to be able to prove that. We need to be more sophisticated in that,
cost
right?
to the business. Yeah.
Well, let's unpack that a little bit, because you've got the brief. Let's say the project was successful. From that point, what are you doing to communicate back to the business that you nailed the brief?
So from there, where do we go? So the brief is signed off. We get the green light.
We've got the green light, gone through the project. It's been a success.
We jumped right ahead.
Yeah, we've jumped right ahead. We jumped right ahead because we're going to start talking about the ROI and you know, retaining your role and working on the next big project because you've built credibility, because that's what it's all about. Who are you sitting down with, and how are you communicating that the brief was a success? And the project was a success because you were able to get the right people in the door, or get the recruiters in the right conversations.
Well, these things, obviously, you know, in running a campaign, it's, you know, they take time, and some campaigns go for quite a while, and it takes time to see the outcome of that campaign in terms of, particularly if you're doing top of the funnel or whatever, that's quite different. But let's say it's some kind of talent pool campaign that you're doing, you know, you're looking for leads. I think it's, yes, obviously there's the point you get to the outcome, but it's actually also, you want to keep the business engaged the whole way through the campaign. Mm-hmm. It's not just, okay, thanks for the money, we'll come back to you in 5 months whenever the campaign's over, done and dusted. And you keep them engaged all the way through and updated what's going on, how it's tracking and performing. And you're obviously having those conversations daily or weekly with your TA business partner.
Yeah.
But I think it's because if something's not going well or not working, you're going to have to tweak and pivot. And it's campaign's not set and forget.
Yeah.
But the business is hopefully getting a sense of that campaign as it's tracking and as it's going along, it's working, it's doing what we said it would. And you get to the end and the outcome and, you do a full debrief report, map it all out, show the full ROI as to here's what we proposed, here's what we said we'd do, here's what we spent, here's what we achieved, this is how many leads, this is how many were qualified, and depending how much passage of time we're talking, and we've hired 4 already or whatever it is. But then, ROI can go beyond that even. You look at, okay, we hired 20, 30 people from that campaign. That campaign was now 12 months ago. How many of them are still with the organisation? That's also a quality measure in terms of the quality.
Attrition, attrition's a big one, definitely.
Yeah, but was it the right talent that we went out to find?
Yeah.
Probably yes, because they're all still here.
Yeah. And I would assume in that project around trying to lift female applications, there's a metric there that you probably had as a baseline that you were trying to get well above. You mentioned keeping the partner or the hiring manager informed of the progress. How often do you think you should be in touch with the hiring manager that you're representing on the project?
I think, it varies depending on the length of the campaign, the relationship you have with them, or is that something the TA business partner might want to own that, and because they would have regular cadences anyway, probably with their hiring leaders and stakeholders, so you might sort of bounce off that. If it's a longer campaign, it might be, fortnightly or monthly, because it might take time to sort of see some of those leads come through.
Sure.
The other thing as well, which I probably should have mentioned, is in the early work and, when you're looking at timing and setting up the campaign, you're working with the TA team, you have to, figure it out with them. Okay, well, we're going to do this campaign. We could get flooded with, we might have 100 leads, 200 leads coming in, or 10 a week, whatever. Is the TA team, do they even have capacity to work with this, to do something with it? Because if they don't have the time and capacity, and you've got, you've been running a campaign for 3 months and you've got 80 leads sitting there that no one's contacted and they never hear from you, what a waste.
That's a huge issue, right? And particularly in audiences where it's a small talent pool, if you kind of have provided a poor experience to those people, they're probably not going to reach out again.
Exactly. You've got one chance. Yeah. So that's so important. You've got to work with the TA team. Is the timing going to work? How is their capacity looking over the next few months? Do they have that time to work through those leads, to reach out to them, have those phone conversations, qualify them, etc., keep them warm? We putting into a talent tool. Do we actually have live roles available right now? Like, what does that look like? What does the work look like for the TA team, and that experience for the candidates that we're potentially...
Yep. No, that's really good advice. There are all the things you have to take in consideration, and I would assume that you would want to have regular meetings, whether it be weekly or fortnightly, particularly early as the campaign kicks off. And I'm assuming that you want to know, as a recruitment marketer or an employee brander, that the talent pool is solid, it's strong. Yep. No point getting 100 applications through in a niche area and they're a bunch of truck drivers and they're not prepared to head over to pubs.
100%. Yeah, and that's it. And that's so the early part of the campaign is important. You're working with the TA business partner, saying, okay, we're getting a few leads coming through. Is that what we're looking for? Are we on the money or not? Because we might have to tweak things, and we can. You should be as you're going through a campaign and figuring out, is this sort of going where we want it to go? So yeah, absolutely. That's it's feeding that information back into the campaign as to, is this working? Is it getting what we're looking for? That's critical, very particularly early in the campaign and through.
When you're sitting down with a hiring manager, is there one question that often comes up from them that they're asking you as the employer brander?
From a campaign point of view, you think, or
yeah.
I think, I'm trying to think.
What are the obvious questions that they're asking? What's the purpose of having the meeting? It's not you just presenting the data. Because then if that was the case, you'd create a dashboard and the numbers would just ping. So then they could do that in your own time. What's the purpose of having a meeting with someone?
Yeah, and I think it's very much, you want to be sort of checking in with them that are they comfortable with how this is going and what we're seeing and what we're achieving from it.
Yep.
What are they unclear about? Is it, they're probably going to say, well, what do you need from us? And it's going to be like, well, okay, we're going to have some candidates coming through soon and the TA team's going to be sort of, qualifying, screening those or whatever. We'd probably, let's say it's a talent pool campaign, we need you to start thinking about when we want to set you up for some coffee catch-ups with some of this talent, or for some Zoom chats just to start, keeping them warm and thinking about, when do you need this talent if we're not hiring right now? What does that look like over time? Has anything changed? That's always a key question. Is this not quite the right talent we're looking for, which you told us we were? Has something changed in terms of the business need? One of the things I know we did learn from one campaign, in terms of the type of talent we're looking for, we actually fed that back into a future subsequent campaign in terms of we needed to look for talent outside of industry. That became more of a focus. And it was particularly because the skills that the business said they were needing,
Yep.
we weren't seeing those skills in the industry. So we had to go to, adjacent sort of roles, but in a different industry entirely to look for this type of skill, this particular type of soft skill they were looking for. And we fed that into a future campaign. Things change.
There's a lot to think about, isn't there? And you do have to be fluid and dynamic and be able to pivot. And every requirement is different. Every hiring manager's personality is different. Their expectation is different as well. So I think it's critical that you have a brief.
100%.
And it's documented and followed and it's fluid as well.
It's like it's your North Star, right? It gives you that clarity as to what are you doing? Why are we doing this? What are we trying to achieve? But then also when things change, and we have to tweak things, that's okay. But we know where we started and why. I love a brief.
Given that you're marketing or at Lion, you work with so many marketers and you got to work with these briefs, and building these briefs in collaboration with these marketing people, what are the common things that you see in the employer brand space that you've drawn upon, like the low-hanging fruit that should be in every brief leveraging marketing?
I think the key thing is getting really clear on the audience. Who are you going after? Everything you need to know and understand about that audience. There's additional
marketing
skills.
talk about that ICP. So you're talking about specifically the people you're trying to get in the door.
100%. Yeah. Everything we need to know about them, skills, where are they, what sort of companies they might have worked for, what level of seniority, all of it, right? The other thing that I found super useful, as I say, is the insight, crafting that insight. And, in marketing world, a marketing insight is a thing. It's almost like a formula, and the formula we used at Lion was what we called the TNT formula, and it starts with the truth. What is the audience's truth or reality?
Yep.
That might be perceptions that they have about your brand or industry or product. Then the N is for the need. What are their needs? It might be functional or emotional needs in terms of what they're needing. And the third one is the tension. The tension is kind of, what are the actual facts about our product or our brand that is probably not aligning with that perceived truth in the audience's mind. So every good insight should have a tension in it, because that gives you the implication of what you need to do. And that was absolute core key for me when learning about how you create and craft an insight. It's so powerful when you can create a great insight. It just really unlocks what is going on here for this audience and what we're trying to do with our brand or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Would you agree, Brie?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm just reflecting on, more of the sophistication in that approach. Because, yes, I think we can chuck money into different things, but this is really taken to another level of really understanding the situation.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is you marketers are very aware of who they're selling to.
Yeah.
And at Lion, in this instance, there's loads of brands that fall under the umbrella of Lion. So they're fairly focused on their ICP, and they're focused on the sales channels. And it seems like you're incorporating the equivalent of a EVP, your employer brand, with the functional and emotional, and you didn't touch on social outcomes, but basically the pillars, and trying to align that in the brief so that you're getting the right people in the door who are going to stick.
100%, yeah. And as employer brand, we are marketers. We wear several hats. We're marketing, but we're HR. It's all of that, right?
But you guys are the best people, I believe. No, you are, because recruiters who think they can do this, it's a heavy lift. They don't understand the science of marketing.
It's a different skill set completely.
And they understand the hustle of being able to find people because they're on the mouse wheel and they're running. But you guys are taking a step back and going, okay, great. I'm not just going to jump at shadows. Let's define what our audience is. How can we have a really nice fit, leveraging our statement or pillars, whether that incorporates your culture and values or your mission and vision, which it shouldn't a good employer brand should, and you're bringing in the right people so that you're getting your recruiters in having the awesome conversations. Flippantly, you said at the start, like, managing expectation, we're not going to get 100 unicorns. Well, you're probably not, but you really do want to strengthen the talent pool.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. I think any recruiter can obviously post jobs. Like on a job board, they'll get applications. I think the role of any employer brand people, it's how do we get the people that aren't on the job boards and aren't applying? So it's the harder kind of part of the warming people up, so if a recruiter does reach out, they're more willing to reach out, like respond to that conversation. Yeah. So they're completely different roles and skill sets required to do that. Yeah. But all too often we see, due to lack of resource funding, recruiters have to step into the role of kind of their role is actually broadened so much so that they have to do all of these things and be. We're a jack of all trades. They're like trying to do what they do and what we do as well. That's a big ask.
Yeah, but this is a great way to get more money through because you're building credibility. You're nailing a brief. That's the goal. It's like, this is the brief, these are the outcomes. I do this. I'm going to build more credibility. So the ask is I could do this easier if I have more revenue, more resources. So that is how you're building credibility and not nickel and diming. There's a lot of employer branders that are nickel and diming and scraping because they're not able to communicate the value. But in this instance, with a longer term view, you're not just going to do one campaign, you do many, 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 many campaigns. You should be able to get more what you want if you just take a step back.
Totally. And as you say, have that commercial angle to everything that you're doing. That is why employer brand exists. You're helping solve a business problem. So you have to be able to talk the talk and understand the business. And at Lion, it was a company of brands and huge marketing and sales teams and customer and shopper teams. So
and different identities within those departments.
Yeah, but it's almost like we had to be the marketing team, and it's almost like talent acquisition is like, the sales team in a way. Like it's so you sort of have to apply the same analogy and think, well, I have to do what the consumer marketing teams do. I have to operate in the same way and think, well, who's our sales team who are interfacing direct with our customers? That's TA, and the customers are the candidates, etc. Right? So you always have to apply the same because it is similar, right?
Yeah.
So but then it means you have to understand and know the business and be able to talk the talk with them. If you want a seat at the table and if you want, resource and buy-in from them.
Yeah. I feel like we could talk about this topic all day. Have you got any final questions?
I do have one,
Brie?
and it's one. I think we've obviously spoke a lot about insights and how critical they are, and it's really understanding that target audience and their needs, their wants, their perceptions. How have you gone about uncovering those? I think the example I'd have, we've previously chatted about, a more recent example where you're working with a tech audience. How can you kind of set up forums or the ways that you can actually get that deep insight to inform what you're doing?
Yeah, good question. And it's, there's so many potential sources of information and data points, and so you want to look at what is the data that we have within the organisation. Let's go look at our employee engagement surveys. Let's look at our hiring data. Let's look at the traffic on our career site, our social channel data, all of that. Let's look at what research have we done before, whether internally or externally, around our EVP or potential talent. So you're looking at any data points you can capture, and you're probably going to look at attrition data and other things. Data is everything. The more, the better. Love data, but you have to be able to sort of wade through that and figure out, what is the narrative or what's going on here to as you sort of cluster little make connections to uncover an insight, But then it's also the conversations, so we're talking quantitative and qualitative, right? So the conversations that you're going to have with people in the TA team, people in the business, in P&C, business partners as well, or, external, maybe you've got some agencies that you work with as well, and whatever, insight you're getting from them. I think every possible source is helpful and relevant. Depends how much time you've got and how quickly you need to move. That's the hard part. You can look at data and research and have chats for days, but at some point you've got to get on, build the brief and do the work.
Yeah. I love the example that you recently shared with me around setting up the forum of conversations with people. Are you able to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a bit more sort of in that advocacy employer brand sort of space. So, sort of thinking about how do you sort of start if you haven't done employee advocacy in a part of the organisation or talked much about employer brand, how do you start that in a very more organic sort of way? And this was something we started doing at 9 recently, and starting with a tech audience, we did a bit of a pilot, and it was really a kind of a conversational, bring everyone together, sort of an open invite, sort of lunch and learn. We didn't even label or call it employee advocacy. It was more about come along. We were going to share some of the recent engagement survey results, sort of like check in, does this sound right? Here's what you've all said in the engagement survey. This is great. There's some great stuff happening in the organisation. But we started just with an open conversation as a kind of a get to know you around the room. It's like, oh, hey John, or hey Sarah, whoever, why did you join, and why are you still here? We sort of, starting with that sort of question just gets people sort of opening up and thinking about, well, I am still here because I love my team and my boss is great or whatever, or I love the work I get to do. I solve really interesting problems in my work. And, these kind of conversations and doing this around the room with a big mixed group was a really engaging experience to get employees sort of really clarifying and remembering, why are we here in this company? Why do we enjoy working here? And this also gave us really useful sort of, opportunities to go, okay, we're going to tap them on the shoulder for a story for our career site later on, or whatever, if we need that person for a campaign. So there was sort of, multiple objectives to this type of sort of organic advocacy sort of sessions that we started doing. And as we built momentum and got more buy-in, it started gathering pace and,
Yeah, I love that. It was just around really bringing people together
to
have a conversation.
Yeah.
Over some pizza, come and have some lunch and have a chat.
I mean, we know we're doing it for employer brand purposes and that it connects into advocacy and it's about engagement as well, but we're not labelling it. Let's talk about employee advocacy.
Well, it can hit your campaign as well, because preferably that it's high achievers that you're talking to, that you've invited to the lunch session, and you will really want to understand why they're here, what's meaningful for them, so that you can try bring those other people in the door as well. Certainly a fascinating conversation.
Lots of ways you can sort of go about this sort of, experiences or moments to sort of bring people together. But it's always hard, right, with employer brand. You're sort of like, oh God, I need to do this and I need this from the business. Well, hang on, what does the business need? And we're there to serve the business and help them solve a problem.
And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways of this episode, is being able to take a step back and observe the landscape and create a key brief that's valuable for the department or people that you're representing. I really appreciate your time. It was a really good episode. Thanks for coming in and sharing your story.
Thank you. Pleasure. Thanks for having me.